Hey everyone, welcome to my session. I'm Nemo. Glad to be with you. It's my first virtual conference. I've been to a couple of droidCons in person. Um, I'd love to see you in person right now, but we'll have to make do. And today I want to talk to you about reverse engineering your manager, or how to play the meta game of being a successful software engineer career-wise. So let me first tell you who I am. I'm Nemo. I used to work as a freelance developer up until roughly 5 years ago when I came to Japan. Since then, I've been working at Rakuten, where I started out as an application developer. Then I focused more on SDK development, became a tech lead in that team. And now I'm mainly doing application architecture, and my current title is principal application architect. So over these 5 and some years, I've had 8 direct managers who I had to learn how to work with them effectively. And today's talk is mainly inspired by the learnings I had along the way and books and blog posts that I read. And I'd like to share my anecdotal knowledge with you, so you don't have to learn it the hard way. So because I started out as a developer, what I'm going to tell you today is mainly from the perspective of a developer, going from entry level to either engineering manager or in the technical architect level. So we won't be talking about how to become a CTO or CISO, because frankly, I don't know about that. But it will be applicable to you regardless of if you want to stay technical or if you want to become a people manager. Everything should apply regardless. However, this will mostly work for you if you are in a medium to large size company that has established middle management structures and a dedicated HR department. Because again, that's what I know, that's what I can tell you about. If you don't fit that box, the mileage may vary of what I tell you, but there's some things in here that should work for everyone. It should be useful for everyone, regardless of the situation you're in. So let's start and let's enter the metagame. So we are software developers, right? So software development is our game. And in all the other talks of this conference, you learn how to get better at this main game, at software development. But in this talk, we will talk about the meta game. Like in competitive sports or online gaming, once you get good at it, at playing that game, a meta game starts to develop, or you recognize a meta game, which are the things that are outside of the actual game, which greatly influence the outcome of your success in the game. So in software development, that means it's the things that we do outside of development activities, outside of bug fixing, outside of UI development, outside of unit testing, that greatly affect the professional success and personal satisfaction that we have as software developers. And one expression of this metagame is that whenever you have a conversation with your manager, you also have a conversation about the position that you're working in. So you may talk about the task at hand, about unit testing, about bug fixing, about a new feature, but on another level, you also talk about your current role, your future role, your compensation, and your job title. So today we'll enter that metagame, understand it, and learn to reverse engineer our managers by understanding the metagame. And learning how to work effectively with your manager really boils down to one key principle. So everything I'll tell you about today leads back to that, and that is making it easy for your manager, because the most successful people, the most successful people I see in big companies live in a symbiotic state with their manager. If you make your manager successful, your manager can make you successful. And it's that symbiosis that puts you on a fast track to reaching your career goals. So everything boils down to this principle, but this principle is quite abstract. So I'm going to break it down across a couple of axes. So we'll look at these parameters of the metagame. The 3 big areas are yourself, learning about yourself, having self-awareness and communicating that. The other part is understanding your manager, what they are, what they aren't, what they want, what they need, and understanding your business and company, so the context in which you and your manager operate, because that greatly influences what matters and what's important for you as a software developer and what is important right now. So let's begin by looking at you. And there's 3 dimensions or aspects of self-awareness that I advocate you should discover first, which is what kind of work do you enjoy? As software developers, we have tons of different tasks that they come in like the different puzzle pieces in different shapes. Some of it is executing, writing new features. Some of it is bug fixing. Some of it is communicating. Some of it is ideation and coming up with new designs. And everybody likes something else, right? Some people really love communication. Others hate that. And you should figure out what is the kind of work that you enjoy most, because that is the work that you will excel at. And everything that you dislike, you'll do a decent job probably, but you won't excel at. So you want to figure out what is the kind of work that you really enjoy. And next, you want to figure out what is the work style that you thrive in. So I know people who love strict hours, coming in 9 to 5, and love going to the office, and they really miss it right now in this era of remote work. But I, on the other hand, I love remote work. If I had a choice, I would never go back to the office. And some people really thrive in a firefighting type environment where they have to react to changes quickly, and every day is different and exciting, and the adrenaline you get when you fix that bug in production is great. But others really break down under that kind of environment, and they love a steady, predictable pace. And neither of them, those 2 styles, is right or wrong. It's just personal preference, right? In the same way, some people are listeners. They want to talk and have a synchronous communication with you, synchronous conversation, while other people are readers who prefer to read a report and then answer by writing a paragraph or 2, and have that asynchronous back and forth. So figure out what work style works for you, what you thrive in. And lastly, figure out what motivates you. I put money at the top of the list because that's the reason why most of us work, right? We all need money. There's nothing bad about that. But there's a ton of other motivators that we have. It might be having very little time that you have to spend on work, so you have time for other things. Or it's having great impact on society, working in a team that you feel a great sense of harmony and community. So figure out what is really important to you. And that might be hard, right? Because all of these things sound cool, and we want to say, yes, I like all of these things. So to make it easy for you to figure out what motivates you, there's these folks at Tuned AI, where you can go and answer a series of questions for 10 minutes, where they give you statement A, statement B. You slide a slider to left or right, telling them, I agree with this or I agree with that. And after that, they will give you this report that tells you, these are the motivators, and these 3 are the ones that you need to have. So when I did this, it said, well, Nemo, you really like money. Financial needs is really high. And on the bottom end is, oh, you really don't care about innovation. So this might uncover some uncomfortable truths, right? As technologists, you wouldn't introduce yourself by saying, hey, I'm Nemo, I don't care about innovation, right? Nobody likes to portray themselves like that. But it's important for you to know what really matters for you and what is a nice to have. Because once you know, you can track that for yourself and figure out what the next right career move is for you. So an example of that I found in the Valley Girl newsletter was she figured out that she really cares about accomplishment, impact, growth, challenge, and community. And once a quarter, she just sat down and reflected, did I feel that sense of accomplishment that I wanted to feel? Did I feel I had the impact that I was going for? And in a binary fashion, she just checked yes, no, and figured in Q4, it was still kind of okay. But then starting Q1 and Q2, she kind of wasn't getting what she wanted out of her work. But she was growing complacent because it's really easy to stay in place. And it's really hard to find something new. But by tracking your motivators over time, you can detect when it is time to find a new challenge, maybe move to a different team, move into a different role, move to a different company. But you can only do that once you understand your motivators. So the first directive I'm going to give you is figure out what is your preferred work style, your preferred kind of work, and what motivates you, and then explicitly tell your manager about that. Explicitly educate them about yourself so they can use you in the most to maximum efficiency, right? If they know this is a certain type of work that you excel at and that you really enjoy working in, they can put you on a project or on a team where that is required. And if they know you're really motivated by innovation, they can put you on an innovation project, whereas if they know innovation doesn't matter to you, they won't put you on that, they can put somebody else on it. So you make it easy for them to use you effectively and give you a work experience that is enjoyable to you. Okay, next let's talk about your manager. So your manager in a big organization has a couple of responsibilities assigned to them as a people manager. One of them is people, obviously, growth of the team of individuals and reviewing their performance. Another one is oversight, is understanding what all of the people under them, all of their reports are doing so they can report up. And another one is communicating from up top down, strategy for that executive officers set, communicating it down and driving it down into teams. However, your people manager is not a technical expert per role definition. They might be at the time of promotion, but the longer it is the people manager, the more they will lose touch with the technical edge, right? The edge will grow dull, and they will actually not be a technical expert anymore, and they won't be able to be a teacher for technical things for you anymore. They're still in charge of your learning and your progress, so they're in charge of making sure that you find a teacher, but they're not going to be the teachers themselves. Similarly, that they're not your taskmasters, right? They should not be micromanaging you. There's very few situations where micromanagement is good and essential and works, but most of the time it's just the wrong management style. So you shouldn't look towards your manager to micromanage you. You shouldn't expect them to give you all these fine-grained task level instructions. Moreover, your manager has an agenda or a mission usually set by their manager, and they turn that into objectives and goals and desired outcomes that they want to see for the team and for you. And that's always some variation of successful products, successful projects, successful people and careers. But it's specific to your manager and your department, your team. And you should figure out what that is. What is the objective of your manager? What are their goals? So you can support them and you can understand what they need from you. And because they have these goals, they will always try to find problems and search for solutions. They will always ask you difficult questions, or try to, because they don't want to be surprised by bad news. They want to know early on so they can find a solution for the bad news. So even if it feels that your manager is trying to shoot down your ideas, it's really just that they want to save themselves. They want to play it safe, so they don't have a bad awakening later on. So because of that, the relationship of you and your manager should ideally, once you have a symbiotic state, be built on trust. So you should do everything to understand your manager's mission and goals and support them, so they trust you when you give them technical advice, and you can trust them when they promise you something about careers. Right? So the next directive is, you are the technical expert. Your manager is not, or soon they won't be anymore. So you are the best person to identify and articulate technical problems. And technical problems are often too technical to have direct meaning to non-technical folks, right? So you should also explain the impact on the product, business, or organization to your manager and other non-technical stakeholders, and also present solutions with trade-offs. That way, your manager understands the technical problem and they feel empowered to take an informed decision about how to move forward. Okay. Do you know what your manager expects from you? Have you ever asked them, what do you expect from me? How do you expect to communicate with you? No? Well, maybe you should ask them. In particular, get down how your manager likes to communicate, how they can best ingest information to understand what you're doing, how often you should report to them or communicate with them, what type of information they need, which level of detail they want to hear about your project progress or your problems or anything that you're reporting to them, in what situations and what time to escalate to them, what are the things that they need to know, what they don't care about so much, and in which communication channel to use to escalate to them. And just like you want to figure out for yourself if you prefer synchronous or over asynchronous communication, you want to do the same thing for your manager, and then accommodate that within reasonable limits, right? You want to be respectful of your manager's time, So when you communicate with them, communicate in a way that's easy for them to ingest the information that you want to give them, to make it easy for your manager, right? And just like any of your other coworkers, your manager is just another coworker with strengths and weaknesses. And this is a thing that you probably can't ask them directly, especially if you have a new manager or if you're new to the company. It's kind of hard to just ask them, hey, what are you good at, what are you bad at? But over time, you can figure that out, or you can intuit. And once you have like a vague idea of what they're good at and what they're bad at, you can try to make up for your manager's weaknesses and leverage their strengths. So this hypothetical manager that I drew in this diagram is really strong in product and really strong in communication, but they're not great at people management. Maybe they have been a developer and they've just recently been promoted to management and they just don't know about it yet. They're still learning. So if that is your manager, you can take advantage of their strength in product and have detailed technical discussions or product discussions, design discussions, and take their advice when you need it. But you can't expect them to create a great career plan for you and set goals that work within the HR system of your company. So you should plan to take time to do a lot of work and support your manager so they can make you successful in your career progression, right? You need to do the heavy lifting because they can't. They lack the skill. Conversely, if your manager has more a profile like this, where they're really good at people management because they have a lot of experience in that area, but they're not very strong in product anymore. Maybe they have stopped being an individual contributor decades ago, so that skill just didn't grow any further and they forgot everything. Or maybe they never even trained as like a technical person, as a developer or a designer. In that scenario, of course, you can't have any discussions with them about product and get their advice on technical issues. So you have to make up for that by turning these technical conversations into more product conversations or more organizational and process conversations so they can participate. On the other hand, you can leverage their skill in people management and career planning to demand them to do the heavy lifting in your career planning and in your goal setting and in advocating for you to reach your goals, like a promotion or a raise that you want. So the next directive I'm going to give you is that you should figure out your manager's mission and objectives first, and then embrace and support them in that. That way you build trust, and that way you make them successful so they can make you successful. Moreover, learn how, when, and what they want to communicate about. Figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are and adjust to that. That way you enable your manager beyond what they're usually capable of, and you take advantage of their strengths. Next, we'll talk about your business and your organization, because the relationship with you and your manager doesn't exist in a void, right? That is the context around you that greatly influences what matters for you and your career development. So in terms of business, the main thing that matters is money, right? We want to be a successful business, so we want revenue, we want profit, we want a competitive advantage. But that's not the whole truth. That's a very, very surface level. If you look closer at it, it depends on what stage your company is in. And this model is taken from the Skip newsletter, where he breaks down the company into 4 stages. And probably most of you are in a company that's either in hypergrowth or in scale. So in the 2 phases on the right side, because that's where we need managers and where we have managers. But even those 2 companies or 2 companies in those 2 phases are very different because they're in wartime or in peacetime. And a wartime company, if you work in a wartime company, you need to act quickly and react to troubles. You need to take shortcuts and scale suddenly, or else your company dies, right? Whereas in a peacetime company, you go at a steady pace, you build in quality from the start, you rely on processes. So you have a slower product development cycle, but a better product from the start. And you need to understand what state your company is in and what your company expects from you, because behavior that's highly valued in a wartime company is frowned upon in a peacetime company and will not make you successful there, and vice versa, right? You need to understand what the state your company is in, because it informs what matters and what doesn't. Moreover, your company probably has an HR department, and you live under an HR regime, which HR is in charge of company culture and of evaluation. And you and your manager, you have no control over that. So maybe you can vent, but complaining about this to your manager over and over again won't change anything. And when we talk about the evaluation system, I like to think about it in two pieces. One is the observable results, the things that we measure in the evaluation. And then the second piece is what is rewarded, what is valued, what will make you successful. So if you show an observable result for something that is rewarded, that is valued, then you will be rewarded by a promotion or a raise. So in Rakuten, we have company culture encoded as Rakuten Shugi. And at the top of Rakuten Shugi, there's these 5 principles of success. And they are everywhere. If you go into the Rakuten office in Tokyo, you'll see them on the walls, you'll see them on the ID cards of all employees. And when we have meetings, like company-wide meetings, they are referenced all the time. And when I first started working at Rakuten, that felt a bit iffy. It felt like propaganda, which kind of doesn't vibe with me. And I felt like the guys who wrote Peopleware with it. These damn posters and plaques, these motivational accessories are a triumph of form over substance, which sounds very damning, but that's how I felt at the time. However, this corporate culture or this company culture really informs the evaluation system. So I had to kind of find my own corner in that company culture and pick the parts of it that resonate with me, because all the goals that I have to set for my evaluation map to these principles. And so I picked hypothesize, practice, validate, Shikumika, which is one of the principles, which in normal language just says, if you think there's a problem, make sure that it is a problem, and then solve it once and for all. Don't solve it. Don't do it like a one-off fix. Solve it properly. And that's something that that resonates with me. So most of my goal settings kind of live in that corner of company culture. And the other thing that I realized over time is that the levels in Rakuten's evaluation system directly, or have a direct correspondence from level to impact and scope of your work. So if you have larger impact, larger scope of work, you get higher compensation and you're in a higher level in the evaluation system, which at first is a very limiting realization that feels very limiting, because you can only have as much impact as the scope of your project that you're working on. And if you work on a project that's only with 4 people and you have barely anybody else in the company that you interface with, and you're not growing like crazy, that can be a bit frustrating, right? You think, oh, I would love to progress to be a tech lead, but I just don't have the opportunity to have enough impact. However, this realization also opened doors to shortcuts. So one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is I enabled all of the teams in Rakuten Tech to more easily contribute to open source projects or open source code bases we have in the company, and make them available for the public. And because Rakuten is such a big company, suddenly this is something that affects all of Rakuten Tech, which is 5,000 people, rather than just my department, which is maybe 100 people. Right? So I took that shortcut into an avenue of greater impact, which made it very easy for me to argue with my manager, hey, I have this great impact, you should level me up in the evaluation system, you should give me more money. And it also made it easy for my manager to advocate for me in front of the promotion council or whatever, like the people who make those decisions. So understanding what is valuable, what is rewarded, makes it really easy for you to reach your career goal, compared to not just following what your manager tells you or what other people do. So the next directive I'm going to give you is beat the evaluation system by understanding the evaluation system and the company culture, setting a goal that you want to reach, that next level, that raise, that project or that role, backtrack from that goal to the now in terms of steps or observable results that match the evaluation system. And And that's it, basically. And that way you can fast track your career growth within your organization by understanding and abusing the evaluation system. Okay, now we've looked at 3 aspects of the metagame: you understanding and your understanding of yourself, your manager and what they need, what they want, what they are, what they aren't, and your company and your HR. Now I'm going to put them all together and give you some recommendations about things how you can fast track your career growth, starting with becoming a leader. Both the soft skills book and the peopleware book lay out a 5-step plan on how to become a leader, even if you're not assigned to be a manager or a tech lead or an architect. So even without positional authority. And the best way to do that is to take on responsibility, step up to a task, something that's neglected, something that's really necessary for your team, and make it your mission to solve that problem. Then make it really visible that you're working on it, make it visible and make people understand why it's important and what benefits your solution will bring. You can do that by speaking up in meetings with the whole team. You can do it by writing a report email to your manager and your team or your department. You can do it by giving a presentation, taking the initiative to say, this is what I think we should do. However you do it, make sure that your team and your manager are aware and understand why you do it and what you're going to do and what the benefits are. Right? The next step is educating yourself or preparing you for the task. So if you have any learning that you need to do, or you need any resources in terms of infrastructure or money, or need somebody to help you out, make sure you have those. You can ask your manager for help in that area. And then the 4th step is the most important one: solve a problem for your team, for your product, and maximize value for everyone. That is how people will recognize your contribution, and they will recognize that you are a leader. You took on leadership in solving a problem that everyone, you alleviated a pain for everyone, and that everyone will be thankful for you. Your manager will have an easy time to argue for your promotion if you do that. And the last step is not so much a step, it's more of a philosophy or mindset. While you do all of that, ignore politics. I know there are company politics, but for the most part, you can live without them, and you will be much happier without them. And go about it with humor and obvious goodwill, because nobody showed up to work trying to do a bad job. Even if you feel really frustrated working with someone, they didn't come to work trying to make your day bad, right? They did the best they could with the knowledge they had at the time. Next, let's talk about learning. Don't expect your manager to push learning onto you. You are in charge of your own learning. Maybe you're in a lucky position where your manager actually pushes something onto you and say, like, hey, why don't you go to this conference, or why don't you take this course or certification? But most likely that won't happen. So the ball is in your court to figure out what conferences are exciting for you, which so far you've done a good job, right? You're at droidCon. So what trainings you need, what software you want, what books you want to read, and probably most importantly, the time you need to actually ingest those materials to develop your skills and your knowledge. Because all the books in the world are fine. If you don't have time to read them, they're worthless, right? So you need to make a plan of what you need and ask your manager for that. Tell them, I need this to reach my goal. And if you don't give me the time, 4 hours a week to study, I know, Kubernetes, because I need that, then I won't be able to reach my career goals, and you will be a bad manager for that, right? And the third part that I want to talk about is the career plan. We've touched about this earlier, especially if you have a manager that's not super strong in career planning and setting goals within the evaluation system. You have to take the lead on this. And the way you can do that is by setting the high level of the plan with your manager. So in a one-on-one, in a conversation of like 10 to 30 minutes, you can just tell them, hey, this is my goal. I want to become the tech lead of our Android team. I want to reach that goal within a year. You tell me what do I need to do? What do I need to show you? What competency do I need to demonstrate so you can promote me, right? And then your manager might say, you need to demonstrate technical depth in Android development. I want to see that you're a technical leader, and I want to see that you do a substantial individual contribution to our Android app development. So these are just examples. Your manager might say something else, but let's go with that example. And once you have this high-level plan, you made that with your manager, you go take that back and fill in the details by yourself. You break it down into small steps, small goals that you can achieve within the next quarter or the next 6 months. For example, you could look at the crash-free rate of your application and say, oh, we're at 98%, that's not good, we should target 99%. Or similarly, you could do the same thing for launch time, right? And you can solve that by showing that your technical depth, by solving it something that somebody else couldn't, or by demonstrating technical leadership, by enabling other engineers in the team to achieve that goal. Or you could tackle the practices and processes and say, hey, our unit testing is slacking, or our static analysis game is really bad, we can do better, or our code review is kind of wonky, or we don't have continuous integration, and you can be the person driving that initiative, setting out infrastructure for CI, enabling people to adjust to that process. Again, it comes back to you being a leader, and you become a driving force behind that. And lastly, you could go to droidCon and present to prove that you have technical depth, right? So for me, this will be part of my evaluation, definitely this presentation. So my fifth directive is asking for help. Figure out explicitly what you need, and then tell your manager what you expect them to do. If you expect them to create a career plan, tell them. If you need public support to convince other people in your team to adopt a new practice, tell them that you asked for that help. If you need money to go to a conference, if you need time to study for a certification, or if you need the opportunity to learn something or take on a new project, ask them. And finally, ask them for that promotion. Okay, in summary, we have our key principle: make it easy for your manager. If you help your manager to be successful, they will help you to be successful. And we broke it down into 5 directives. Figure out what work style works for you, what kind of work you like, and what motivates you, and educate your manager about yourself so they understand how to use you to maximum effectiveness. Number 2, you're the technical expert, so you should explain technical problems to your manager and explain the impacts in terms of product or organization, and offer solutions with trade-offs so they can make an informed decision. Number 3, you should support and enable your manager by understanding their mission and supporting them all the time, making up for their weaknesses with your strengths and leveraging their strengths. 4, understand the company culture and the evaluation system to beat it. And 5th, explicitly ask for help from your manager. Probably you've had managers ask you, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Tell them, I need that money to go to the conference. I need that book. I need time to study. And they will be glad because they can say, yeah, I was a good manager. Okay, all of the references that I gave in the talk are linked on this page, and a couple of videos. There's also links to my blog and my Substack and my Twitter. And lastly, we're hiring. Come work with me at Rakuten. We're looking for Androids and iOSs and web developers and DevOps. If you have any questions about the job postings, send me a DM on Twitter or send an email to my work email. And that was it. Let's go to Q&A. Okay, I'm going to put on my Q&A mask. Let's see. What if we do everything while taking responsibility, being visible, being a leader, etc., and still the manager gives us less hike and more hike to someone who did nothing? Yeah, that's a shitty problem. It's easy to think that maybe your manager is a bad manager. But my first instinct would be to try to understand their reasoning, right? Or just ask them why. What are the things that made them take this decision? But if you don't get a satisfactory answer, right? If you, after having that very frank conversation with your manager and they can't give you any good answers, yeah, maybe you need to find a new manager. Or you could, depending on the relationship in your organization and overall kind of climate in the office, you could ask their manager, but only if that doesn't kind of, if they don't feel like that would be stepping on the toes of your manager, if you know what I mean. Like you don't want to make your manager your enemy, and if they feel like you're betraying them by asking their manager, then don't do it. Right? But if you have a good relationship with your manager and with your manager's manager, then do that. Okay, I'm going to jump to the last question. Could you share this slide? Thank you. Yes, I've already put it in the speaker blog on the talk website, so you should be able to see it from there. If not, I'll talk to the conference people and make sure you get the slides. Okay, let's jump to the middle question. You focus on making it easy for your manager. What do you think about concept that employee should not mainly focus on his manager, but on making whole company better? What manager wants is not what always good for him. Yeah, that's a very good point. Ideally, what your manager wants is good for the company. And frankly, like I said, I had 8 managers, and I think 7 out of those 8 managers, what the manager wanted was good for the company. And in the one situation where that wasn't the case, what I did was I tried to get out of the team aggressively. I just moved somewhere else. But that's not always an option. And I guess, again, try to understand your manager, because maybe they see something that you don't see. And if there's nothing to be understood, if they're just plain wrong, the only advice I can give you is try to move to another team, a different department, or eventually a different company, because like you say, the best work and the best effort you do will go to waste if it won't be recognized. And if you have a horrible manager, then you're wasting your energy. And yeah, if that's the situation, I'm sorry, but I don't have a magic solution. Okay, let's see if we get another question. Well, doesn't seem to be the case. So in the meantime, thanks everyone for attending the talk. And if you have any questions or want to discuss anything, reach out to me on a DM on Twitter is probably the easiest thing. And yeah, I'm open to discuss anything. Oh, there are gender biases which managers have. They think women can't do it. Any suggestion on how to change their thinking? That's a really good point, and that's a really big problem. To be honest, I don't have a good reply on how to change your manager's behavior, because I've tried to work against that myself. When I do hiring interviews, I try to introduce certain techniques to correct for my personal bias, and even doing that is really hard, right? Because a lot of them are unconscious. So the only way you could affect change in your manager is probably in a big organization through HR. So if your company has like an equality or diversity or something like that group or department or hotline, I don't know, you can kind of contact them and ask them for advice, because frankly, they know better than I do. Or if you have a concrete complaint where it's really where you were wronged, objectively wronged, then you can file an HR complaint even without the diversity, equality initiative in your HR department. But yeah, that's a really tough one. Again, I kind of I feel bad for giving the advice to find a better manager a lot, but that's what some of my female friends have done in the past when they encountered a really shitty manager who's really sexist, and it's hard to change people, right? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. If one is a team member and he'd like to do those optimizations, how should he collaborate with his team lead? Oh, that's a great question. Actually, that's something that I forgot to mention, which I wanted to. The point about being a leader, you might think, oh, there's already a team lead who's in charge of that, and I don't want to step on their toes. And that's a valid thought, right? But the team lead, if there's still a problem, let's say static analysis is lacking, and you really think you should set up more static analysis for the team, go talk to the team lead about it and say like, hey, I noticed that this is a shortcoming. I think it's a problem and we have great benefits. Explain the situation to him like you would sell the idea to the whole team, and see what they say. Because chances are that the tech lead or team lead already had those ideas, and maybe they're in the backlog, or maybe there's a reason, a historical reason why the team doesn't do that. And if nothing speaks against it, and if they agree with you, then they're probably going to be happy to delegate or do it together with you, or let you handle that, and they will support you. So you can become the leader of that initiative, while yet the team lead or the tech lead focuses on other initiatives, right? So you can complement each other. There's room for more than one leader in group dynamics. And again, it's all about, not about positional leadership where people are assigned roles. It's about the de facto who does stuff, who gets shit done. That's what matters in leadership. I hope that answers the question. Okay, I think we have another question. What if I'm enrolled in pseudo-initiative company where overtiming, self-development, engagement, and taking responsibility for important stuff is accepted as a normal behavior? How should I perform myself as the best one? I mean, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but it sounds like this taking initiative and driving and being engaged and taking responsibility is the norm in this scenario, and you want to stand out, you want to be better than the rest. I'm not sure that you need to stand out. If you do those things and be really good at it and be recognized for it, that's good enough. You don't need to be better than somebody else. You just need to have positive impact. But it's for it depends on company culture, right? So I can speak from my background and my opinions. It might be, your company might recognize it differently. But one red flag in there is the overtiming. I would be very conscientious about spending extra time outside of work hours, even if other people do that and you see that and you follow the example, because that can lead, there's a slippery slope to getting kind of exploited and working double the hours for the same pay. Yeah, so sorry, those are not proper answers. They're like half answers. But if you can explain the situation to me in greater detail, maybe on a Twitter DM, I'll try to answer in more detail and give you something more useful. Yeah, it is, right? You can make it yourself. It's Wintercraft. They sell the patterns, and you can just print it out, tape it on a piece of cardboard, cut it out, glue it together, and then you have your own mask. I have a bigger one too, but it's very inconvenient, so I'm just wearing the small one. So go check them out on Instagram. They have very cool, very complicated masks. This is just a basic one. Oh, timeout. Okay, I guess that's it. That's our time. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of droidCon and have a good day.